Oh my God. I love this show so much. I'm yelling and it's 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. Let me calm down. Baby, the adults are starting to see the red balloon now.
Welcome to the Asia Esterak Hour, where film meets conspiracy and pop culture gets a reality check. From sharp recaps to sci-fi theories and media deep dives, Asia Esterak serves it unfiltered. Let the binge begin.
All right. Welcome back to the Asia Esterak Hour. I'm Asia Esterak. Welcome to Derry Season 1, Episode 4. Let's get into it. We open with the group of kids going straight to the police station with the photographs that they took because they want to prove that Ronnie Grogan's dad did not unalive the kids at the theater, which we know he didn't do that. Wait. Anyway, I'll get to him in a minute. So they go in there and talk to the police chief, and of course he's snarky as hell with his homies behind him. They reveal the photos, and he's like, oh my God. Oh wow. And they're thinking, and they're like, this is what we saw when such and such was dead. This is what he looked like. And he's like, ooh. And he goes, is that pigeon shit? And he reverses the photo to show them that all they see are pictures of headstones. So they're like, what? So they're looking through them like, but the last photo is the one of Pennywise back in the cave that Mr. Will Hanlon took. And they were like, well, what is this? And Lucy Bainbridge, she's like, what are you blind? That's a clown. And he's like, I know you're not getting smart with me, homegirl. Mm-mm. So he warns them. He's like, you guys need to stay out of this. And Lucy, are you trying to go back to Juniper Hill? So they leave, basically kind of getting laughed out of the police station. My thing is, well, anyway, so they go to their little hiding spot, which is that like abandoned lighthouse above Derry. So they're sitting up there talking, and they're trying to figure out why they couldn't see in the photographs. So Will Hanlon, black kid, smart as a whip. So he's like, what if Pennywise is like, some animals feed off of fear? And he starts talking about the different hormones, adrenaline, and things that fear feeds off of. So Ronnie Grogan, the black girl, she's like, well, maybe it's like waiting till it's going to scare us enough until it's ready to get us. Because they're all like, if it wanted to kill us, it would have killed us already. It did it with everybody else. But then Lucy brings up a great idea. She's like, well, do we know that they're dead? I mean, we don't know that Maddie's dead. Maddie said he was seeing crazy stuff before he disappeared. You and I both know none of them kids are dead. Not like that. Well, maybe in the theater. Well, they're over in the lore. They up there. They're not dead. So one of the kids brings up Dracula, and they were like, is this like a Dracula thing where if you kill him, everyone's released type of situation? Anyway, so they now know that they're stuck. No one's going to believe them. They did their due diligence. Nobody's going to believe them. That's where they're at. So, but of course they're going to still do some digging. So the Native American lady, I cannot remember her name right now, but she's a pretty lady. So she ends up crossing paths with Charlotte Hanlon, which is Will Hanlon's mom, the black lady. Now remember, Charlotte Hanlon is already not feeling Derry. There's something weird. And she's reading the newspaper about Ronnie Grogan's father being accused of killing the kids at the theater. And we learned from her from the South that, she's a civil rights activist, freedom writer, the whole nine. She's a headstrong, smart woman, which we can tell in this episode is a kind of a bit of a contention between her and her husband, Leroy Hanlon, the sergeant, who's not scared of anything. So anyway, I can't remember how the lady ends up meeting her, but she basically tells her like, if you ever need somebody to talk to, blah blah blah. Obviously that meeting was important. They exchanged small pleasantries, and that's it. So Will Hanlon's up in his room looking for the photographs, and his mother Charlotte follows him up there, and she's like, I found these when I was cleaning out your room. What are these? And she's like, what's going on? So he kind of tells her an abridged version of what happened at the cemetery, and she's like, you need to be more careful, blah blah blah, but this stays between me and you. So of course, later on at dinner, when his dad comes home, his dad's like, "So how was your first week at school?" And he's like, "It's fine." And he's like, "No, details." So the mom is about to start talking, and Will thinks that she's gonna tell his dad what happened at the cemetery. She doesn't. She's like, "It's a girl." So we learned that, he learns that it's Ronnie Grogan. So the dad is still clueless, but he realizes that maybe he needs to spend a little bit more time with his son. So the next scene, that they're out there fly fishing, which as soon as I saw them standing out of some water, I was like, it's about to be some bullshit. Cause Pennywise, he never loses a moment to get into the bullshit. And he didn't in this scene. So they're out there fly fishing, and of course Will hates it. He's like, "How much longer do we have to do this?" He's like, "We're bonding." So he catches a fish and ends up swimming away. And I guess the little thing for bait, the fly or whatever, had come off of Will's hook. So his dad's like, I got another one in the car, so I'm gonna go get it. So he leaves him out there in the middle of the stream, river, whatever. So Will, of course, is looking around, and he sees something in the water, and a hand reaches and pulls him out, pulls him down into the water. It's a scary zombie version of his dad, basically telling him that he's gonna burn. It's Pennywise. So the dad, Leroy Hanlon, the sergeant, he hears his son screaming. He actually senses the danger, which I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But he hears his son screaming, so he goes running and sees that his son is under the water and struggling, pulls him out, and he's like, "What's going on, son?" And he's like, "There was something under there trying to grab me." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "You. It looked like you." So he looks at Will's hands, and there's like blood and like marks, like burn marks. So it's obvious that something's wrong. So as that's happening, they look over. Well, Will looks over in the distance, and then his dad, Leroy, looks, and it's a red balloon just floating. So Sergeant Leroy Hanlon can now see the balloons too. And remember, he's not scared of anything. He was born without fear. Okay. So after that, that's the first seed that's planted. They both walk away from that situation like, So let's get to Dick Halloran. So remember, at the end of the last episode, Dick Halloran, after finding out, basically meeting it in his head and telling James Remar's character, the main lieutenant, I don't think we should be digging for homeboy like that. It's not a good idea. He did ask if him and his other military friends could have like their own place to hang out at. So he ends up giving them this like, I forget the word, decommissioned station where they go into this like, basically it used to be, I don't know if it was like a storage unit and they have to clean it up. So they're cleaning it up. They're going to turn it into like a little spot where they can chill. Dick Halloran goes outside and he gets a vision, and it's of his grandmother, and she's standing off in the distance in the woods, and she's warning his ass. She is warning him, and he's getting visions of drain pipes, talking, the sewer. Dick Halloran is very connected. And I feel like in this episode, we really see the magnitude of his power. Listen, if you read Dr. Sleep by Stephen King or saw the movie, Dick Halloran is very powerful. He's a very powerful psychic with the shinin or the shinin. Shout out to The Simpsons. Anyway, so Dick Halloran has this vision, and his grandmother's warning him again, like, stay away, get away. And he's seeing all these horrible things, and he's seeing like dead bodies and other stuff, which we learn later what he was actually seeing at the end of the episode. But it's not good. So obviously that all gets broken up because he hears a car horn, and it's Leroy Hanlon, the sergeant. So he shows up where they're at, and he's talking to him, and he basically is like, so Leroy Hanlon, the sergeant, he asked Dick Halloran, he's like, what are we looking for? Like, what's down there? And Dick Halloran, very emotional, I don't know what it is. You have an idea of what it is, but you don't want to say because it's scary. So I love it because Sergeant Leroy Hanlon, I know his name now, that's why I keep saying it. I kept calling him the black guy last week. So he knows that something is not right. He's aware. I feel like he got a little extra sense too. He knows something's not right, and he knows that Dick Halloran knows something ain't right because Dick isn't even being forthright about what's happening. He's probably not allowed to, obviously, but he did. Leroy asked him like, "When are we going up again?" He's like, "I don't know. You know, I just take the orders like you do." Okay. So meanwhile, back in town, Charlotte Hanlon, the mom, she's curious about Ronnie Ronnie Grogan's dad being locked up. So she had read because in the paper it's like local Negro locked up for kids at the theater thing. So anyway, she had visited the chief of police prior and asked about talking to him, and he was like, "No, you're not a lawyer and you're not related to him." Okay. So she ends up, she's like, "Well, was he given due process? Was he able to talk to a lawyer? The whole nine." The police chief, you could tell that shit was irritating him because we know none of that happened to Homeboy, which we later find out. And, she's Miss Freedom Rider, civil rights activist, and she's gonna ride for dude. So she ends up going to visit his mom and asking what happened. The mother doesn't know, and the mom's like, "Are you a lawyer?" Blah blah blah. Ronnie Grogan, Ronnie is over there listening in the cut to Will Hanlon's mom, Charlotte. So long story short, Charlotte gets the grandmother to write a letter basically saying it's okay for her to speak to her son. So she goes back to the police station, and this was great because the deputy was like, "You can't go in there, blah blah blah." And what did she say? The line was fucking chef's kiss. She was like, "You don't know what magic shit I can do with a phone." I was like, "Okay, girl." She's like, I'll have what she say? "I'll have JFK, RFK, and every FK up here." I was like, "You go, Charlotte." I'm yelling, sorry. So they let her in. So she ends up talking to Ronnie Grogan's dad. And she's basically like, "I know you weren't treated fairly. And did you, we know you didn't do this, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "I didn't do it." And she goes, "So then why don't you just tell them where you were? Whatever you were doing couldn't be as bad as what you're being accused of." This is the 60s, you guys. They live in a predominantly white town. So he reveals that he was out that night. So Ronnie Grogan's dad admits that he was out that night and he's been banging a married white lady. That's why he's not saying where he's really at. And he's like, "I'm dead either way." And he's right. He's like, "If I tell them where I was, I'm going to be hanged." And it's interesting because he didn't say which married white woman it was. Why is it giving the police chief's wife? Why is it giving he's banging somebody's wife at the station? I feel like whoever the woman is, she's going to be important and pivotal to his storyline, clearly. So there's that. So I kind of skipped a little bit. So I had said at the beginning that the kids had met up at the lighthouse afterwards. That's not true. They were actually in the school gym. So this time around, they are at the lighthouse. They're talking about Pennywise and it feeding off the fear. And they're like, "How do we?" They're basically like, "We got to turn off our fear." Like, and Ronnie's like, "How are we going to do that?" So Lucy, "Well, I think I may know a way." So they show her at school. She goes, "My mom says that whenever she takes these, it washes away all her fears and she's able to handle things." She calls them mother's little helpers. So they're pills. They're probably like a Xanax or a something, whatever hot, numbing, socially acceptable pill back in the day that the mothers were taking. Rolling Stones has a song called "Mother's Little Helper," which is about that. Anyway, so she's like, "If we take these, maybe we can fend off, Pennywise and not be scared." Girl, you got the kids doing drugs. Lucy, I get it. She's desperate. So they're at school. They're in science class. This is interesting. So they're in science class and they're learning about parasites. And the teacher is talking about this one parasite that gets into snails and it makes the snail's eyes bulge out bigger, which makes it more visible to its prey, to the predators, which are birds, which pluck them out. Remember that. So anyway, in the class, Lucy's watching they're all watching this, documentary about these parasites. And her friend Marge, who's a part of the patty cake. Marge, get on my nerves. Marge, I had mixed feelings about you in this episode. Anyway, so Marge basically comes over to Lucy and she's like, we don't really talk that much anymore. Can me and you just like meet for lunch? Okay, cool. So they go, it's lunchtime, they're eating lunch together, and cute Marge is exchanging glances with the one girl who's head of the patty cakes, the real mean girl. And clearly this is a setup to get Lucy to do something, to get Lucy to be humiliated. So the cute popular boy in school comes up and says hi to them. I don't remember his name. I guess he was the head of the football team, whatever. So Marge is telling her, Lucy, she's like, I think he likes you. And she's like, you think so? And she's like, yeah. She goes, why don't you go over and talk to him? But maybe you should freshen up first. She goes, should I freshen up? Yeah, why don't you go to the bathroom and freshen up? So she's like, okay. So Lucy goes to the bathroom to freshen up before she go talks to dude. Marge and the other girl are exchanging glances. Lucy goes, the other girl walks over to her and she's like, you need to go in the bathroom and make sure that she does it, because basically they're setting her up to go talk to the popular guy for him to humiliate her in front of everybody in the cafeteria. Marge, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's supposed to be your friend. Lucy Bainbridge is your friend, right? So why are you doing this to her? Crazy. So anyway, Marge goes into the restroom and she's talking to Lucy, and Lucy's all happy. She's, making herself look cuter to say hi to dude. And Marge is like, yeah, you'll look really nice, and you can go out there and you know, you could tell that she was nervous because she knows what she's doing is wrong, but she wants to be accepted by these group of girls so damn bad that you're going to betray your homegirl. And she actually says to her, we've been friends since like the second grade. So this is how you do your friend. So anyway, Lucy's like, well, let me go pee first. So she goes into the stall to use the restroom, and Marge is out there and she starts looking in the mirror. And Pennywise got in that ass. So Pennywise gets in that ass and her eyes start growing out like the parasite, the snails that we just saw in their science class. So she's moaning and screaming, and Lucy's like, Marge, are you okay? She comes out the stall. She can see that her eyes are growing too, and she's like, so she's trying to calm her down. Marge runs out because her eyes, and she's screaming in pain, and the eyes are growing out bigger like the snails. They're protruding out. She goes into the one room. She grabs like this some sort of sharp tool out of the science class, and she's trying to gouge her eyes out. So she actually tears one of the eyes off. She's screaming. She actually gets on this like one of those table saws. She's trying to put her head in it to saw her eyes out. Lucy comes in and stops her, knocks her down. Marge, what are you doing? She grabs the tool and she's holding it up, and everybody in the school comes running in and sees her covered in blood. Homegirl's covered in blood, her eyes messed up. And Lucy's like, no, I didn't do this. Back to Juniper Hill, yo ass is going. See, Pennywise is a trip because he is now setting up the kids. He's setting them up. And he's setting them up. This is my opinion. This isn't the show. This is just my observation. He's setting them up because they know what he is. Anyway, so after that, I'm skipping, you guys. I'm skipping. So after that, Sergeant Leroy Hanlon, actually, I'm skipping a scene. I totally skipped this scene. Let's go back to it. So Will Hanlon, the little black kid, Sergeant Leroy Hanlon's son, he's in his room trying to sleep. He can't sleep. He gets up and he's like, I'm going to look out. I'm going to look at my telescope. So he's looking through the telescope. He's looking at the sky. My butthole was completely clenched in this entire scene because I was like, what bullshit are we going to see on the telescope? Because it's going to be some bullshit, right? So anyway, excuse me. So Will's looking through this telescope. He's looking at the sky. He can see the stars, blah, blah, blah. So he looks again and he's pointing down into the neighborhood, and boop, he sees Pennywise's outline, the old school clown leaning against a tree looking at his ass, eyes glowing. He freaks out and screams. Dad comes running in. What's going on? What happened? It was funny. The father can sense his son's fear. I wonder if they're going to address that. I noticed that was twice in this episode. So the dad's like, what's going on? He was like, there was somebody out there watching me. So Sergeant Hanlon earlier in the episode checks his wife, Charlotte, or at least attempts to, because his best friend saw her walking into the police station earlier that day. He calls her out on it and basically tells her, You already got arrested when we were down south. Don't make me look stupid. I'm doing important work here and I don't need you acting up. So there's that. So anyway, so we go back to this scene. The dad's like, somebody was outside watching you, and Will's like, yeah, he knows what it is. So he runs out. The father runs outside in the middle of the street. They're in an all white neighborhood, yelling in the middle of the street, talking about, I know you're out here. Show yourself. Show yourself. Looking crazy. So he doesn't, of course, nobody walks out. The neighbors' lights are turning on because they're like, what is this dude doing in the middle of the street? So he's walking towards the house and he hears rustling in the tree, and he looks up in the tree and there's the red balloon. The red balloon. All right. Last part of this episode. So Sergeant Hanlon walks his ass into James Remar's office. Francis, the lieutenant, the big dog, had hired him. And he's like, what are we looking for? What is going on? Something's not right. So that's when the sergeant takes him to this other room, and he's like, we know that they know what's going on. Before he has the conversation with Sergeant Leroy Hanlon, he's talking to one of his other dudes, and the other guy reports back to him, and he's like, we checked all the sites that the Native American woman said, and there's nothing there. And he goes, well, and he's like, of course she said that, So they're showing pictures of the other Native American younger kids that are watching the spot that they're digging. And he's like, can you bring this guy in? So it's so they bring him in for questioning, and he turns out to be the nephew of the main Native American chick that was friends with Francis as a kid and knows all about it in the Western Woods, the whole nine. So anyway, they're basically, the guy is in an interrogation room, and in walks Dick Halloran. He sits in there with them. James Remar and Sergeant Leroy Hanlon are watching this, and he's like, this, he knows a lot. So they watch Dick Halloran talking to him. Dick Halloran looks at him and he says, what they want me to do to you is really painful. It's really bad. So why don't you just go ahead and tell them what they want to know? And the dude he's got one free arm, and he has another arm. He's handcuffed to his chair. So he's looking at Dick Halloran, he spits in his face, and Dick's like, all right. So Dick does some shit like this, and then like this, and gets at homeboy's head. He basically goes into his head and meets him as a little kid, and he comes in the form of his aunt, the Native American lady, and basically is like, tell me the history of this place. So basically in this scene, and if you watch the second It movie or read the book, you know how it gets there. So basically, the Native American settlers came to Maine first. It came out of the sky. The way he describes the story, an evil spirit was cast out of the sky, ends up in the earth out there, feeding off people's fear and shit. The Native American people figure out a way to fend it off by one of the rocks that it came in. Basically, it came in like an asteroid type thing. So they used some of the rock that the asteroid that it was encased in, and that's what they used to basically keep it in the woods. So they're able to keep it secluded to the Western woods. But you know how history is. The white people show up, the colonizers, and they start doing their shit. And of course, the Native American people warn them, but they don't listen. They go into the Western woods acting a fool. And what does it do? Acts a fool back. So what the Native American people realize is it is getting stronger, and it comes back to them in the form of the colonizers. That shit was scary. And of course, the strongest warrior in the crew is obviously a female, because women, because we can fucking do it all. So she's the fiercest warrior, and she's fighting off Pennywise, looking like Friar Tuck and shit. That shit, can you imagine a demonic Friar Tuck coming at your ass? Yikes. So they realized that the Native American people there realized that this thing in the woods is strong, and now it won't leave. It's coming out of the woods, and this little bit of rock is not going to sustain it. So she goes into the woods with her homegirls to go fight this thing. Can't fight it. So she goes in and tries to fight it. Can't fight it. She ends up losing. Her daughter follows in her footsteps and tries to fight it as well. What they're able to do is they figure out they can't kill it. They don't know how. What's funny, because they allude to it Not saying that they can't kill it, but they don't kill it. I think they just don't know how to kill it. So they're like, if we can't kill it, we'll keep it enclosed here. So they basically bury 13 pieces of the rock around the area to keep it enclosed. And what happens is, because of it, it ends up going into the drain pipes of Derry, which we're now learning. So in this memory, Dick Halloran, remember, he's controlling this whole situation. So the little boy, the Native American guy that's in the room with him, it's him as a little boy explaining everything to the aunt, which is Dick Halloran. So after he's telling the story, Dick appears in his head and smiling at him, looking creepy as hell. And we go back into reality. And that's kind of he tells him, I'm sorry, he doesn't, he's still in their head, but now the Native American kid is an adult. And he's like, to get to the 13 pieces that are buried, you have to go to the house and go through the sewer. So the house at the very end of the episode that he's pointing to is the house in the first It, the rundown one. That is the lair. That's how you get to its lair, is through that house. And I can't remember the name of the house in the street because it was all in the book, but that's where the episode ends, at that house. Now, few takeaways from this episode. Dick Halloran is very powerful. He's so powerful that it is curious about him. That's how powerful he is. So there's that. And he knows that he's not supposed to be getting any closer to it. Your grandmother has now warned you twice. Third time's a charm. Grandma's warned you twice about playing with this bullshit. Sergeant Leroy Hanlon can now see the red balloons too. So he is aware that they're... Sorry, my ice pack alarm went off. Anyway, so the adults are... It's funny. This is what's interesting. Stephen King, you're a genius. So only the children, the Black people, and the Native American people can see the bullshit. Don't you find that interesting? It's interesting. And I'm using that because if you look at the history of the area, colonialism, and all that shit plays into the believability, right? So it's interesting that Pennywise has taken over this whole fucking town, pretty much. He's in the drains. He's in the drain pipe. And the irony is, out of everyone on the show, besides the kids, that is close, that understands Pennywise and it the most, is Dick Halloran and the Native Americans, specifically that lady. And Lieutenant James Remar, Dexter's dad. He knows something too. And my thing is, what is he digging for? And he makes a comment. He's like, we have to find them before the cycle ends. Anyway, welcome to Derry. I love this show. I was so excited yesterday morning when I woke up and knew that it was going to be on. Great episode. I think there's only 8 episodes this season, and we're on episode 4. And I don't think we're going to see Pennywise the way we are used to seeing him until probably the last 2 episodes. They're definitely building up to something. And Lucy Bainbridge, girl, I'm curious what's going to happen with her. Anyway, great episode. Happy Monday, you guys. Stay hydrated, stay warm, be nice to each other. And I'm going to go return these videotapes.